Okay, a second major actual that you'll be capturing on a project is obviously the materials. Again, this is another discussion if you're implementing Workguru within the organization. Is it what's the most advantageous way of getting those project actuals against the project? Is it doing it digitally or versus analog? So people are scribbling down stuff onto pieces of paper or job sheets or work orders and giving it back to the admin team to enter in, or they can actually tell the system either through their mobile app or we have a tool called a Kiosk, which is designed specifically for workshops. That's a really cut down version of a material usage for the projects. So that's, again, like the timesheets, that's an important discussion if you're looking at implementing Worker within the organization. So generally, stock on hand usage within the project, like I said, it's all about the when you're adding actuals. So, but however, that is actually very specifically related to how your actual workflow works within the workshop as well. So Worker will allow you to track stock used as you're actually using it. So that real-time stock usage, that works really well for projects that run over a larger time period. And then also what it lets you do if you do have shorter jobs is that you can essentially use all your forecast parts or use all remaining parts at the end of the project. So it's like a chicken egg thing, but it's very specific to the workflow. But there are a lot of tools that'll let you kind of streamline or minimize the data entry requirements for you or your team to track material usage correctly. Just with the usage, just like the timesheets, like I mentioned, it's really important, especially if you're using inventory items, that the products are actually used on the projects when they're actually used, because that's when it'll be taken out of stock. So, for example, we've had some clients that have been caught up with incorrect stock on hand because they've got a 2-week project and they've used all their stock at the end of that 2-week project. So at the end of the build, when they invoice the client, they actually use all their materials. The problem is there's products that the system still thinks is on a shelf, but was used, say, 2 weeks prior to that. So that causes stock allocation issues for the other projects that are running concurrently in the workshop. Like I mentioned before, the stock on hand, the project actuals in regards to materials, we have a specific tool called the Worker Kiosk, which I'll run through quickly in our demo. That's a really cut down interface to allow people to really easily select the project they're working on and add the products that they've used on that project. This kiosk is really good. If you do have a central stock location, you can literally set it up at the door where that location is, and it's compatible with barcode scanners, etc. So you can actually have guys scan stuff out of a location as they take it from a shelf and out into the workshop. So generally with your material usage on projects, the actual physical stock control becomes really important. That's why they call it stock control. So it's stuff that's controlled. So there should be some sort of metric to just stop people from just grabbing whatever they want whenever they need it, without actually telling the system what's happening with that. The other tools we've got an example for is we can set up a lot of the standard stock control functionality that kind of helps out with that, in that we have min, max, and par levels that you can tie to automated purchasing to make sure that you always have the stock on hand you require. The other thing we can do is also purchase to order based on the forecast project stock requirements out to a specific date. So if you've got projects booked in and scheduled, say, out to the end of September, Workguru can ensure that you can actually purchase all of the materials you require in bulk to have enough for that project load. So the idea, obviously, the more you buy, generally, the cheaper it is, due to unit costing, and also you're minimizing your freight costs, because that's what generally kills people with people that are buying ad hoc for manufacturing projects, is you have to get the same thing every week. Obviously, the freight component of that can add significantly to the project's overall cost. So if we can purchase as much as we can in bulk, we can obviously hopefully minimize the additional costings to land that stock into the workshop. The other thing in regards to the material usage obviously is coming up with workflows that suit your particular requirements in regards to handling wastage. So, for example, if you're actually using sheet steel or linear lengths of steel or things like that, making sure how do you want to handle for all the offcuts and things like that you're not actually using on the project itself. And kind of hand in hand with that is that if you do have specific project variations, it's important to have variation workflow in place as well for that. So there's a whole stack of different ways you can approach that. Worker is pretty open in regards to those two workflows of getting the requirements into suit your particular variation or wastage workflows. But at the end of the day, it comes down to, as long as you're telling it what's happening when it's happening, it will always be correct. Like I mentioned before with the timesheets, we can also lock in location-based stock usage. So, for example, workshop A only sees the stock on hand for workshop A, not the overall organisation if you have more than one stock location. Tying with that, obviously, we have the full suite of your standard stock control functionality like stock adjustments, stock take, and branch transfer, warehouse transfer tools and things like that.